Hi, good morning and welcome to this Unmind live session. My name's Heather, I'm Head of Psychology here at Unmind, and today I'm going to talk us through some exercises on managing worry. Now at the moment we're faced with a lot of uncertainties, there's lots of unknowns, and in particular we're being quite constantly bombarded with news and information about the current pandemic situation. And one thing we know about uncertainty is it generates worry. So as humans, we tend not to like uncertainty. We find it quite hard to sit with because uncertainty sort of tells our brains that there's a threat. It tells us that there's something dangerous that we need to do something about. And that tends to trigger worry. And when we engage in that worry process, we tend to kind of overestimate the threats we face. We maybe overestimate how awful they'd be, overestimate how likely they are to affect us personally, and crucially we also tend to underestimate our own ability to cope with those things. So once we get caught in worries, it's easy to start really imagining all these worst case scenarios and winding ourselves up, so it becomes quite hard to switch off and we can become quite tense. And crucially, getting caught up in all this worry means that we've got less resource to focus on the other things we need to, whether that's work or looking after people or generally just getting on with things in life. So the more resource we dedicate to worry, the less we have for these other important things. So today I'm hoping we can unpick worry a little bit and talk through a couple of strategies for helping deal with that. So we've already mentioned uncertainty, and just to think a little bit more about that. So when we're faced with uncertainty, which we certainly are right now, we can sort of approach it in two ways. So the first one is to try and get more certainty. And there's ways we can do that as long as we're not striving too hard for absolute certainty. So we can find out more information from reliable sources. So kind of reading reliable news sources, looking at government websites and kind of finding out what we need to know in order to equip us for what's happening. Similarly, we can liaise with our employers or other people who we're dealing with and kind of find out, what's happening sort of now and next, so we can make plans around that. If we're uncertain about our sort of safety in the future, there's some practical things we do in terms of stocking up on supplies. Again, not too extreme, but just making ourselves feel like even if there's uncertainty, we're sort of prepared for it. When we've kind of done everything we can to feel sort of some degree of certainty, there's usually a bit of uncertainty left. And the kind of flip side is that we have to learn to tolerate that uncertainty. Now, this is a really hard thing to do. Many of us just really don't like sort of sitting with that unknown. But one thing we know is that the more you strive for certainty, probably the more worried and anxious you're going to start feeling. So if you feel able to accept that there's some things that just aren't certain, that you can't know now, the best thing you can do is to try and just let go of those things and focus on the things you can be more certain about. And we can dig a bit deeper into this just in terms of how we sort of manage those worries. So if you bring to mind something you're worried about just now, if you feel comfortable, I don't want to force anyone, but if you think of the things that have been on your mind, maybe the last couple of days and the things you've been worried about, try to bring to mind one of the main things you're worried about and just silently in your head sort of put that worry into words. And now we're going to try and kind of work with this worry just a little bit. And the first question I'm going to ask you is whether this worry is something that's concrete and real and current, so something you're currently facing, or whether this worry is more of a what if sort of worry. So what if this happens, what if that doesn't, more of a hypothetical worry that may or may not happen in the future. Sometimes it can be hard to differentiate between these two exactly, but I'll sort of talk you through both options anyway. So if your worry feels like something that's current and real, the best thing you can start to do is apply some problem solving. And that just means thinking about all the options for dealing with this concern you have. What are all the things within your power that you can do right now? It can help to sort of talk these through with someone else, write them down, or just hold them in your head. But ultimately, you're just trying to generate solutions to deal with this problem that's a current issue. And some of these things you might be able to do now. Some you might have to put on a list and schedule for later, which is absolutely fine. So once you've sort of problem solved and made lists of all the things that you can to deal with this worry now, and sort of parked the side some of the stuff you can do later, the key is, as much as possible, to try and let that worry go. And by letting it go, it just means giving yourself permission not to be constantly thinking about it, and reminding yourself that you can come back to it at a later date, whether that's tomorrow or next week, if it then becomes a time where you can do something about it. If your worry is less a kind of current tangible worry and more of a what if, more of I'm really worried that this thing might happen in the future, it's probably the case that there's not much you can do about it right now. And that's really hard. It's really uncomfortable if you're worried about this big thing that's scary and anxiety provoking and it feels like there's nothing you can do. And in this case, it's number one, not sort of beating yourself up for worrying about this, but it's also trying to think, how can you encourage yourself, similarly to what we talked about a second ago, is to let go. And again, this doesn't mean letting go altogether. It just means kind of acknowledging, a bit like the uncertainty, acknowledging that if there's nothing you can do about it right now, it's probably not very fair on you if it's taking up all of your headspace. So it's trying to say, I'll let go of this worry for today or for tomorrow, and I'll allow myself to come back to it at a later date if things change, if I get more information, or if the worry starts to show signs that maybe it's becoming more of a current and real worry. This is a hard thing to do. It's not something that you can suddenly just do overnight, and if you've been worried about something for a long time, or if it's serious, of course you can't just suddenly let go of it. It's certainly something that takes a bit of practice, but it's just trying to have this acceptance in your mind that although you're kind of primed as a human to want to know everything and to want to control everything, that right now with this current situation, that's quite hard. We can't know everything. We certainly can't be certain about everything. And we have to kind of go against the grain a little bit and sit back and acknowledge that there's some things we can't know, there's some things we can't control, and that actually striving to have these in our heads can be quite counterproductive. So what I'd encourage you to try and do is to think about what we've talked about this morning. Certainly not expecting you're going to go away and suddenly solve all your worries, but just try and remember those things. Just try and give yourself permission to let go of some of these big worries that are in your mind, particularly if you're finding that they've been there a while and they're kind of going round and round and they're keeping you anxious, but you're not able to do anything about them. And try and focus your energy on these things that you can control, trying to problem solve, sort out these sort of immediate worries, and you can turn your attention to these kind of less tangible ones if and when the time comes. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you've enjoyed this exercise and taken something from it. We'll be back again in a couple of days with another one. So stay tuned, stay safe, and keep on minding. Bye.